As the saying goes, everything is bigger in Texas, and looking at our guides report this week, that seems to be the common denominator between saltwater and freshwater. Lots of big fish are being caught, so get ready for the 411 on this week's Texas Insider Fishing Report.
Welcome to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Presented by Yamaha.
Thanks for tuning in to another week of the Texas Insider Fishing Report. We're your hosts, Brie Gabrielle and Captain Rick Murphy. And this week, the captains have geared up their reports for the Father's Day weekend ahead. Right, Rick?
Absolutely, Brie. You know, and I hope that the guys go fishing either Saturday or Sunday, because that's certainly one of the things we certainly love to do.
Absolutely. Okay, well, let's say hi to Dave Ferrell at the Workbench. Dave, are you excited for the Father's Day weekend ahead?
Oh, yeah. You can always get a good feed of crappie. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. So they can get some good feed for the fry.
Good stuff. Crappie for the daddies on Sunday. All right, first up, we're casting into the Fish Bites Upper Coast region with Captain Carl Weston. Tell us what we have to look forward to, Carl.
Well, team, let's take a closer look at Sabine Lake today. This is a saltwater estuary that is over 90,000 acres in size. This lake is 14 miles long and 7 miles wide. And most anglers consider this the best red fishing spot in Texas. So Sabine Pass and the adjacent jetties are always a player in this complex of waterways, cuts, and grassy shorelines. So leaving the tiny little town of Sabine and headed out towards the jetties in the morning, take a look for mullet rippling on top of the water. Give a few tosses of your cast net, and you should be full of some of the best bait in town. So, finger mullet is what's on the redfish menu in Sabine. Small shad work as well. Most guys prefer mullet. And don't forget your mirror topwater, because he's always put some fish in the box too, A tried and true spot is the East Jetties boat cut. This spot produces big stringers of reds on a daily basis, and it's very much worth that long boat ride. Today we've got a picture of a nice red in the bag.
Nice. Go ahead, bud.
Yeah, moving on to trout. With all the excitement over a few tagged redfish in the area, it seems like the best trout spots in Galveston Bay Complex are getting a little rest for a change. The trout bite has been good as it gets here lately, and the big fish we touched on last week are still giving anglers a good workout. The shell reefs are covered in bait, and so it's making it very easy to find with the seagulls pointing your way, feeding on that bait. And also in the middle of the East and West Bay, there are small schools of finger mullet that are run along the grassy shorelines and rocks on the inside of the jetties. They're also run pretty thick out front of the beach as well. Catching live bait is the best way to kill, to troll, ease up on that. Use your troll motor to ease up on these live bait to catch them. And if you're in a larger boat without a trolling motor, try to kill your engine and just coast into them. Let these fish swim your way and cast that, and you won't scare them off as easy anyway. We got a picture today of Jarvis with a nice mess of trout. They call them the beachfront.
Nice. All right, let's go offshore, bub.
Now, moving offshore, this past Saturday launched us into tournament season here in the Upper Coast. And I want to touch on a tournament that we had Saturday. It's called the Texas Champions Kingfish Tournament, and it is there for needy children in the coastal area. It's a great tournament and a great cause. The reason I want to touch on this week, too, is a family team, Bustin' Loose. A fellow I know, Trey McCrumman, his wife, his sister, is a family team. They won this tournament Saturday with a two-fish tournament, and they brought in two, Rick, over 50 pounds. Now, you know as well as I do, fishing these tournaments for years, to catch 50-plus pound kingfish in a day is quite amazing. They had a 54 and a 57.
Wow.
So, I think that's kind of a day of a lifetime. I don't know if we'll ever see that again. And so getting back to dialing in on these kingfish this week, structure is where you want to be as always. You want to check for signs of bait fish on this structure. Sometimes you'll see it on the top water, but look on your meter. In the top 25% of that water column, you're going to see bait, and you're going to see long, skinny lines. That's going to tell you that you're close to kingfish. We usually do a test drift just to see what size the fish are when we're in a tournament, and that'll make the decision up pretty quick whether we're going to stay or we're going to run to the next spot. Because some days it's not easy finding these big fish. So it's best to have 4 to 6, maybe 8 spots mapped out during a tournament so you can hit them pretty fast. because wasting too much time on a spot with small fish will kill your chances of putting that winning fish in the box. And, we fish with live bait when it's available. Not to say artificial won't get the job done, but I like live hardtails, big hardtails. And we have a picture here today of JT and Chris bringing in a kingfish.
Nice. All right, bud, one more species to go.
We're going to talk about laying. In the past week, we've seen a lot more laying coming into the dock. Being that the snapper season is full swing, you need to watch out for laying following the fish up from the bottom when you're hooked to the snapper. The laying will follow them right up to the top. So try to always keep some cut bait on board and a rod rigged for ling or cobia, as you guys call them there. I usually keep about a 3 foot, I tie about a 3 foot piece of fluorocarbon diamond leader to a eagle claw. I use a laser sharp 6/0 hook. I keep it there all times. This comes in handy when a ling comes to the boat without warning, because if you're not ready, you're going to miss them. And don't start off your day offshore without checking the buoys, anything floating, standpipes, really anything out there. You see debris, weed lines, anchored ships I've caught ling on before, oil platforms are prime targets as well. Now, bait's a long story, and I bet every fisherman or lady angler in the Gulf has a favorite bait setup, and they probably all work. But I like to use a live small bait. Artificials work as well. Sometimes ling just can't resist something with a curly tail. And today we have a shot of Andrew with a nice ling from the weekend.
All right, bub, thanks for all the pictures this week. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the Mirror Upper Coast hotspots. He says inshore, redfish in Sabine Lake and the jetties, fish with live finger mullet on a popping cork, and then offshore, kingfish on the big underwater structure with live hardtails on a double treble hook rig with some wire leader, Brie.
All right, well, this new Papa is celebrating his first Father's Day in the Startron Middle Fresh region.
What?
I know, congratulations, Matt. What's our weekend of fishing looking like on Richland Chambers, Sam Rayburn, and Toledo Bend?
Well, it's looking great, Brie. The weather has finally really settled into feeling like summertime around here. It's gotten hot. The wind's kind of stopped blowing, but the fish are still munching. Life is good out here. The bass are biting pretty well up at Richland Chambers. Mr. Thurman Selman up there at Bass Specialty Guide Service says that he's catching bass on topwater baits early in the morning, and then after the sun gets up, fish are pulling out to about 6 to 8 foot of water. And out there in that depth, he says they're suspending in treetops, so he's catching them on weightless stick worms as well as creature bait. And then the water up there is warming up fast. He mentioned that the water temperature is now in the 80s, and the water is at pool level, so consider that when you go. I got a photo here for you of one of Mr. Thurman's clients with a real nice bass. Good scene there. Pretty picture of Richland Chambers. Nice. And then we're going to move on down to Toledo Bend. On Toledo Bend, the water's still falling pretty quickly. You know, with the hotter weather and less rain, they're generating a lot of electricity through the dam. So they're pulling quite a bit of current, sucking the water level down. So the bass are really starting to stack up more in that 10 to 20 foot of water along the break line. Shad are still key to finding the fish, so watch those electronics and find the areas that have the most bait fish around. That's going to be real key for you. The bite is still pretty aggressive right now. They're still eating good, so when you get around them, you ought to get bit pretty quickly on a shad-colored crankbait or a bass assassin worm. Kind of a 1-2 punch has been working for me real good. Then moving over to Sam Rayburn, you can sort of take your pick on the type of fishing that you want to do over there. The water has begun to come down a little bit, but it's still higher than most of the lakes around. It's just barely below pool. But like I said, thanks to that hotter weather we've had, it's starting to come down. But it's still high enough to keep some of the fish shallow around the grass and the trees. So frogs and pitching baits are still working over there. Stuff like the bass assassin skunk ape are great for pitching around those cypress trees and isolated patches of grass. And then offshore, the fish are beginning to set up. So I look for that bite to get a lot better in the coming weeks, especially with the water coming down. Look to points and break lines in the near future for those schools on your electronics starting to get out there. Then over and down to LBJ, Jared Poole is catching his bass on a frog still, up around the water willow grass, but only real early in the morning. He says it's a super early deal and then it's done. The water temperature there is up to 86 now. And so after the frog bite dies in the morning, he's pulling out around the deeper docks. And he said they're producing some fish in the middle of the day with weightless stickworms. And then on Buchanan, Jared is also catching some fish over there, but he's catching them deeper. He's catching them in about 20 foot of water on the flat with a 10-inch Texas rigged worm. And then he's also catching some flipping into the trees on this flat in about 20 foot of water with heavy cover jigs. And the water temperature there, he says, is up to 85 degrees now. And then lastly, or I'm sorry, not lastly, but next, the crappie bite. Still really good at Toledo Bend. We're really mashing on them. The fish are sticking a little tighter to the cover right now, so you do kind of have to deliver the bait a little more precisely. They're not moving around as much. They're tighter to the cover, so keep that in mind. And that goes for the minnows or the jig. So just focus on making your drops real precise down into that timber, right over the top of it, down in the shade of those trees, and around the shade of those bridge pilings are still good. They're also hanging a little deeper right now. The fish have moved down some, getting into the shade of that cover. So kind of start about 8 foot down, tight lining, and then work your way all the way down to about 20. It's a good idea to drop your baits around 8 foot first, and then work your way down, because the fish will usually move a little deeper after the boat sits on for a minute, but they don't normally leave, so you just go deeper and catch them. I've got another photo here for you of the Peavy family with a real nice 2-boat catch of crappie. They split their family up into 2 guide boats with Josh McCarty and myself living the dream, and that was their haul for the day. They came out with a bunch of good white flaky meat there.
Nice.
Too shabby.
All right, one more to go, bub.
Yep. And finishing out, wanted to touch on the catfish in the brim. A lot of them still being caught right now. The brim are kind of hanging out in about 1 to 10 foot of water, and the catfish are down in 20 to 25. Crickets have been best for the brim, and minnows or cut bait are best for the catfish. So you can still fill a freezer with them.
All right, thank you so much, Mac. Go give that little baby a hug from me and Brie, and we'll talk to you again next week from the Star-Tron Middle Fresh region. Bass are still cooperating all over the Middle Fresh region. The common theme is topwater in the morning and then soft plastics later in the day. The crappie are still biting well on Toledo Bend, but they are sticking tighter to the cover in 8 to 20 feet of water.
He's gonna have such a good Father's Day. My Mia was born a couple days before Father's Day, and it was so special for my husband. So.
Of course
Yay,
it is.
It's gonna be great. Wow, Dave's laughing. All right, we're seeing what the bite's like in the Albee Reels Middle Coast region next. But over to our Workbench Wonder over there. Dave, what's so funny?
I wasn't laughing at you. I just thought of something funny all of a
Yeah,
sudden.
okay, why don't you tell the class?
Yeah, well, we're going to be
What are we
talking
talking
about
about?
using a popping cork and catching crappie. Popping cork and crappie? Really?
bad.
That's what we're going to do.
Poppy and crappie.
Not too crappie. We'll be back.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. Casa Vieja Lodge. 5-star angling in beautiful Guatemala. Garmin. Join the club. Sportsman's Adventures. Fishing for adventure. And Skeeter Performance Fishing Boats. Eat, sleep, fish.
Reliability. Yamaha is known for it. And it's something boaters value, because these days, few things are built to last. When we find something that is, we hold on to friendships, traditions, outboards. Because every second on the water is sacred. If you count on having this time, you need an outboard you can count on to power it. That's why boaters choose Yamaha for the long run, for life. Because reliability starts here.
Remember the glory days of gasoline? It's just not made the same anymore. Kick your gas into gear with StarTron. Pump up the performance in all of your engines. Cure the problems of ethanol with the power of enzymes. And maximize your mileage every time you drive. Kickstart your engines with StarTron.
For the Bay and beyond, team up with the best and rule the Bay in a Skeeter. Proven with 19 consecutive NMMA Consumer Satisfaction Awards. And right now, through June 20th, you can save with summer sizzling rebates of up to $2,500. Versatility, control, performance, and design. Visit your local Skeeter dealer or online at SkeeterBoats.com. Skeeter, it's more than a boat, it's a lifestyle.
Have you ever felt your heart pounding while feeling the power of a tarpon in the Florida Keys? Or experienced the changing colors of a mahi as you bring it on board? Whether it's in the Bahamas, the Florida Keys, Guatemala, or the Florida Everglades, Murphy's Law Sports Fishing has the ability to guide you to the fish of a lifetime. To book your trip today, call 305-246-0673 or go to murphyslawsportfishing.com.
Well, we're here for the rigs and techniques, Dave, and the workbench looks like you got lots of things.
I got a lot of stuff, I do, but for the little fish, the littlest fish we talk about probably, crappie don't get really huge. If they get 4 pounds, that's a monster. If they get, but most of the ones we catch are like a pound and a half are a good size to eat, But Texas is slam full of good crappie fishing. All the lakes just about have good crappie in them because they get real deep. They like, crappie like to live in lakes that are deeper. They don't do well in little ponds and stuff. I mean, you can catch them in there, but they don't really do really well unless they're in a deep body of water. So Texas is full of those. So it does really well. And they're also great for kids. Seeing how it's Father's Day coming up, it is a good time to go out and catch crappie because they're good. Once you find them, which is like 75% of the trouble catching them is once you find them, the action's usually pretty quick, and you can catch a bunch of them, and kids like it, and plus they're good to eat. They're really good to eat, so that also makes good for a good fish fry on that day. But there's 4 main techniques. You can troll for them, slow trolling with a trolling motor, or even with the wind and a windsock. You can vertical jigs, or you can just drift, or you can just cast. Still fishing or just casting. They eat a lot of things, little things, and so they're pretty easy to catch again once you find them. The best live baits for them is a minnow, a tandem minnow rig like these from Eagle Claw that you can buy in the store. Those you put a couple of minnows on there on top of the fish, and you're going to get a bite because they love a minnow. When you're using these things, you want to be careful, especially if you're slow trolling them or whatever. You don't want to troll them too fast. You don't want to troll them too slow. You want to troll them just right, because if you troll them too fast, then they start getting up above the cover, and you don't want that. You don't want them blowing back and getting up above the cover and being an unnatural presentation. And if you're straight up and down with these on the minnows, a lot of times the minnows will tangle up because they're not having any resistance against them, and they can just freely swim around. And if you're at 0 degrees, you're going to get a tangle. But if you got a good little 10 or 15 degree arc on it when you're slowly trolling along, that's about what you want. So so
you look something like this.
Yeah, exactly. So that they'll stay separated, and you'll get a hookup when you get a bite. These little Aberdeen hooks are really probably the best ones. A little long shake, so you can get them out real easy. If you catch a short fish, you can get it out and get a good.
And so Eagle Claw, this thing comes actually made. All you got to do is put on your minnow.
Yep, put a weight on the bottom.
Weight.
Put a weight on the bottom and tie it on, and put your minnows on, and you're ready to go.
Good.
Now you can also use tandem rigs with jigs. Instead of putting a minnow on there, you can use a little jig like some of these that we have here by Bass Assassin, the Crappie Dapper, which I use the Crappie Dapper a lot when I'm trying to find fish. I'll slow troll the Crappie Dapper, and I'll usually either use just a plain Crappie Dapper on a jig, or I'll put it on a Roadrunner head with a spinner on it, like that Marabou with a Roadrunner head and spinner. And I usually catch more bass than I do crappie when I'm trying to find the crappie, because that little Crappie Dapper with that spinner blade on it, it must look like a live minnow because everything eats it. Big bass, little bass, and crappie. So those are really good things to use. And also tube baits, hollow tubes on a jig head are really good to use for casting when you're trying to find fish. They come in all different colors, but all the professional guys will tell you that chartreuse and yellow and white are probably
like a pompano, man. Chartreuse.
Chartreuse. If you notice, a lot of these things here are green and yellow, and some glow and stuff. There's not much other stuff over there. And real quick, I want to make sure that we get to the bobber action. In the spring and the fall, when the fish get up into the shallower water, in the summertime like now, when they get hot, they're talking about how the fish are getting into deeper water. When they're up in that shallow water, and you want to keep your jig in that area above them, So they'll come up and eat. It's really cool to throw the little bobber out and a jig underneath of it, 6, 8, 10 inches, depending on how deep the water is and where the fish are hanging. So they'll come up and eat that jig. If you try to throw that jig out there when they're in that real shallow water, it'll sink below them a lot of times before they get a chance to get after it. And you'll get more bites with using the bobber, just popping it along the surface and letting that jig work under it, just like a popping cork for a big trout or a redfish.
Mm-hmm. All right, Dave, you did really well over here.
So, Dave, here's a question for you. Since you're the chef of the family, how do you like to eat crappie?
Well, if they're big enough, I'll fillet them and keep one skin. I like to keep the skin on one side because I like the skin. I like a crispy skin,
So you scale it?
I scale it and then fillet it. And then, but if they're smaller, there's nothing better. I deep fry them whole. I deep fry them whole with flour and cornstarch and then panko on top and deep fry them.
Fins out.
Oh, they're so good.
Salt and pepper.
I like the tails. They're like a potato chip.
Potato chips. Well, there you have it.
There you go.
There you have it.
Crappie
Grilling
chips.
for Father's Day. Hey. All right, let's head into the Albee Reels Middle Coast region with Captain Bank Grimes and see how all the dads can beat the heat this weekend. Hey, Bank, happy Father's Day.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be a father of an 18-year-old graduate headed to Texas A&M. So, and our fishing has just been as good as it could possibly be. It's hotter and hotter down here, but our fishing is still hot. It kind of seems a lot like we've had 2 months of July, and July hadn't even gotten here yet. Wading's been the best way to beat the heat. Sand and grass shorelines along West Matagorda Bay has held scatter catches of trout on top waters and soft plastics. Live baits, it's kind of been a little bit better bite because our water temperatures are about 84, 85 degrees, which is normally the case this year. The east end, the East Matagorda Bay, has coughed up some good trout while wading. It's a muddy wade on that east end, but a few degrees cooler water over mud kind of attracts this trout. Those tides pumped up this week with low pressure in the Gulf. That water we've been waiting for finally showed up, and man, catches were really good. We've been floating across the shell in East Matagorda Bay with light winds. Been doing that a lot the last few weeks. You have a legitimate shot at a 30-incher every time you make a cast. Today, I let go of a 6 and a 7-pounder, and last week I probably lost the largest trout I've ever had on in East Matagorda Bay. I couldn't turn the fish. She made a lap under my boat and just threw the hook, and I just felt helpless. But she was big. I saw her. The very next cast on a mirror lure, Little John, caught a 7-pounder, so we knew we were in big fish. In Port O'Connor, that topwater bite's been good. Live bait's been the best there as well. Waders are working flats near Pascavallo with the tidal flow, sand and grass flats, and San Antonio Bay and the Espiritu Santo Bay are holding good trout too. Those fish are slicking on the shorelines. You get right behind them and smell that watermelon smell, and man, it just you can light them up on top waters there. The Rockport and Port Aransas game continues to be same sand and grass shorelines with she dogs and bass assassins. I've caught a lot of fish in my life on bass assassins in Rockport and just about everywhere, but it seems like in Rockport they really like the chicken on a chain, the fried chicken, and the slamming chicken, so whatever piece of chicken you want. The photo there, Koji caught him a nice fish in East Matagorda Bay on light winds last week. Redfish, Port O'Connor, guy Lynn Smith, he said he's had a hard time finding slot keeper reds, so there's just a lot of bull redfish while wading, especially close to the pass. A lot of fish on the inner bars of the surf. We were able to get in the surf last week, and although it wasn't optimal conditions, it was sandy, very, very sandy and rough. Man, there were just all kinds of fish in there. Lots of bull reds at the Port O'Connor jetty on finger mullet and crabs and about 35 foot of water. Same holds true around Freeport and Surfside. Our tides finally dropped a little bit late last week, pushing the redfish off the shorelines in Matagorda. We've been drifting those same little reefs. We're drifting for trout, and what's happening, those fish are slicking up. They start with little trash can size slicks and then grow bigger and bigger, and man, those redfish are right behind them. You find them, they're slicking up behind Menhaden and Ballyhoo, and a lot of ribbon fish and finger mullet in our bay right now with a little all those bait fish with those oily sheens that really give away the location of the fish. Then in West Matagorda Bay, North Shoreline's been good for redfish around Oyster Lake. Small brown shrimp are pouring out of the marsh right now. Many of the fish have been in the 6 to 9 pound range. They're best on live shrimp under a mid-coast popping cork. Offshore, it's been rough on the big pond, but the folks that are going out there and braving it, from Freeport to Matagorda to Port Aransas, have seen snapper to 18 pounds over wrecks, mainly on sardines. Matagorda, Port O'Connor game has been the same, but there's just been a lot of rough water here lately. So it's kind of limited how far they're going. Still a lot of kingfish being caught within 4 miles of the beach on divers and sardines. And then at Port Aransas, the kingfish are pretty good on ballyhoo and sardines. When it's been really, really rough, a lot of those captains are staying close within sight of the jetty and the beachfront, working lots of sharks and a few kings. And man, there's been a lot of afternoon tarpon showing up around the rocks in Port O'Connor. So, it's June. We love June. A lot of different opportunities.
So, Bink, how big do you think that trout was? I mean, everybody always has a guess, but go ahead, tell me.
You had to go there.
I think he was 10. I think he was every bit of 31, 32 inches.
Nice.
I saw his caudal fin, and it was every bit of 10 pounds, every bit of it.
Oh, man.
All right, so you mentioned about the different types of chicken. What's your favorite chicken, Bink? I'll tell you what mine is, or you tell me yours.
Chicken on a chain. It's the go-to. It's the go-to in Texas. I also
popular.
really, really like that fried chicken in Clearwater. There's a little flat I weighed near Port O'Connor. That, man, it really shows up. It looks just like a little sardine, little glass minnow, little anchovy. It looks just like it. Man, they eat it up.
All right, well, just for the record, I just want you to know I like the thigh.
Okay.
I'm a breast man.
I knew that about you, bub. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the hot spots from the Middle Coast region. He says inshore, trout are good on the edges of the reef and Port O'Connor on live shrimp and bass assassins, and then offshore is good for red snappers, 18 pounds out of Freeport. The kingfish are showing up around the rigs near Port Aransas. He's got it going on everywhere, Brie.
Can't get away without talking about chicken, can
No,
you? Chicken good.
I need to have some chicken.
Anytime chicken is good. All right, coming right up on the Texas Insider Fishing Report, we're taking a closer look into the Upper Fresh and Garmin Lower Coast regions to see how we're going to celebrate all of the fathers, pops, dads, grandpas, and pawpaws out there on the water this weekend with some big fish. So stay tuned and remember to follow everything fishing in Texas. Be sure to head over to our website, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, follow and tag us in your photos on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube page, Captain Rick Murphy. We'll be right back.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Contender Boats, always in the game. Bass Assassin and Saltwater Assassin, the best lures, period. Alvy Reels, a better way to fish. And Murphy's Law Sport Fishing. Book your trip today at murphyslawsportfishing.com.
An entirely new species of extreme predator is moving offshore. The Yamaha 5.6-liter V8 XTO Offshore Outboard. Extreme big block thrust and power in the industry's first direct injection 4-stroke. Quiet, efficient, powerful, and proven Yamaha reliability. More than an outboard, it's a fully integrated power system. The all-new Yamaha V8 XTO Offshore.
Why is Casa Vieja Lodge on everyone's bucket list?
Left teaser! Left flat as well, 2 fish! They're everywhere! Right flat teaser as well! Left flat, right flat teaser!
Come to Casa Vieja Lodge and check it off your list.
Finding a shoreline is easy. Finding a sure thing is not. For over 20 years, anglers from Kitty Hawk to California and every shore in between have come to know one thing: that nothing says no to fish bites. So just stop with the fishing and get busy with the catching. Ask for Fish Bites or Fish Bites Fight Club lures or visit fishbites.com.
Today's power pole tip is about utilizing your power poles and making yourself fish more patient. Now understand, guys, it's really important that you utilize the power poles to slow your fishing down. The fish are gonna feel a pressure wave even if you're in a technical poling skiff that's very light. So as you approach a small bay, make sure that you power pole down and let that wave go out in front of you. Sit there for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. And what that allows you to do is the fish get used to the pressure of the weight of the boat as it's in the bay. In 2001, when I was first introduced to the power poles, it was in the IFA Redfish Championship, utilizing the power poles and power poling down, fan casting from 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock and then around to 3 o'clock, picking up the power poles, moving 60 feet. Utilizing that idea allowed us to come in 5th place in that championship, and that was my first exposure to what made power poles allow me to dissect a bay. So be more patient, don't be in a hurry, and that's today's power pole tip of the week.
All right, in the upper fresh region, Lake Fork, Tawakoni, and Texoma are the places to be this weekend if you want to catch them up. So let's get Johnny Geist on the line to give us the details. Hi, Johnny. Happy Father's Day.
Hey, Brie. Thank you so much. Well, let's start on the last one there, Texoma. Let's talk about some stripers up there. Old Bill and Chris Carey of Striper Express, they sent a good report in that the striper fish has just been fabulous up there lately. Catches of stripers, they're ranging right now from 2 to 13 pounds. The lake level is about 2 foot above normal, and surface temperature is running from about 79 to 86 on these hot days. Texoma is just finishing up the transition from the spring season to the summer topwater and slab season. Captain Bill said that the Striper Express company never closed, and for the last 6 weeks, it's been crazy. Lots of anglers got a taste of some Lake Texoma mean and feisty striped bass fishing, and it continues today. Captain Bill says there's no better time than to call your favorite guide and go catch some fish and get outside in the great outdoors. Texoma is about to begin the legendary summer surfacing action. The early mornings will be where the bite's at. It's first light, the stripers will be surfacing in 3 huge schools around the lake. The fish will be up to 13 pounds. They'll be busting shad on the surface. And most of that topwater action is about the first hour to hour and a half each morning. And after the topwater action, the schools, they stay grouped up in large schools and move offshore. But that's when the guides, they all switch over to heavy slabs weighing about 1 to 3 ounces. Drop them right over the side of the boat, let them fall vertically and hit the bottom, and most strikes happen on the way up. You just burn it to the top, hit the bottom, reel it back up fast. The striper strikes it, almost sets the hook themselves. So the slab run can be fast and furious and usually last only to about 10 o'clock, and that's about it for the day during the hot summer. New biologist data up there at Texoma is showing now that Texoma's got more striped bass than ever in the 60-year history of their shocking programs. Bill said about 37% of the fish are running 20 inches or longer, so barring no floods or drought, the stage is set for a great several-year run for striper fishing on Texoma. There's not a better time to head up to Texoma, and Captain Chris Carey says, come get you some of this. Sent in this picture. Now that's one long, lean striper that's going to fatten up this summer. Nice. On that picture. Let's move on over to Tawakoni and talk about some hybrids as well as stripers. So, guide Matt Cartwright, he's still loading the boat every day over on Tawakoni. Every day he posts a bunch of fish. The live bait bite's the best way to catch both the hybrids and the big stripers at this time. He is catching limits in the deep timber areas, but you can expect some big fish breakoffs as they head into that deep timber out in that 40 foot of water. The sand bass are also biting great, and Matt and his customers are catching limits of all 3 species almost daily, no matter how many customers on board. Matt shared this picture of a real nice Tawakoni striper customer caught this week, and that's a fatty right there for Tawakoni.
Well, that is a nice one. All right.
Over here, black bass on Fort, man, it's a full-time summertime pattern right now. The deep water structures holding large schools of bass at this time. These bass are feeding heavily a couple times a day, but you got to be on the best spot when that dinner bell goes off. I'm fishing as many long points that I can that drop into 40 foot of water, and usually with the quick search, using the side and down skin on the sonar, it'll let you know if the bass are on the feed or not. So look for that bait fish that's close to the bottom, find those larger marks close by, and you're ready to catch. I'm using my Garmin Live Scope once I get them located to pinpoint those feeding bass, and man, it's a lot of fun watching how those bass relate to your lure. I can actually see them hit the bait. 3/4 ounce shaky head worms in red bug color, that'll entice some bites, as well as a 1/2 to 3/4 ounce football jigs, matching traders, and green pumpkin. So when you locate bass on the points and humps, they're usually many more in that school than you think they are. We're catching sometimes 15 to 20 bass in a small area before moving on. So when the feed's on, you just got to be there. Using the live scope, I'm vertically jigging for the bass to trigger that bite. So when the artificials fail, which happens a lot of times, I'm putting for customers on a large bluegill on a Carolina rig, holding it right on their nose with that live scope. So many customers now are catching their personal best each week, and this pattern should hold up throughout the summer. My sister just caught a 938 2 days ago for her big one of the summer. And look at this picture I got for us here. This young lady last week, she caught her personal best wreck 4 times on the same trip. So I think she had a good day on Lake Fork.
Oh my gosh,
goodness.
I'm so jealous.
I see that
Most all the lakes in the Upper Fresh region are fishing real good right now, so time to get out on the lake and wet a hook and catch some big ones.
All right,
Don't come see us up here on Fort.
All right, Johnny, thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the hot spots. He says that Lake Texoma and Lake Tawakoni striped bass and white bass are excellent on live bait and slabs. The diving birds are marking the schools on the surface. The largemouth bass are fair fishing plastics, shaky worms, jigs, and swim baits and crankbaits in 6 to 18 feet of water. And then you got Lake Fork. The black bass are biting great in 20 to 26 feet of water. The big bass are schooling up on the main points and hitting big shaky head worms and football jigs. Drop shop red bug colored worms on the calm days are going to work for those bass as well, Brie.
4 times. That's
4
awesome.
times.
All right, whether Pops Lakes offshore or inshore or both in the Garmin Lower Coast region, Captain Chad Kinney is giving all of the options, and they're all looking pretty darn good. Talk to us, Chad.
I tell you what, yeah, both options are looking great. The trout fishing remains just excellent. It's been on fire, but the blue water is coming up from Mexico, which is going to turn everything on offshore and change everything. So starting with the inshore, trout fishing remains, like I said, really excellent along Lower Coast from Corpus all the way down. We're going to talk about Port Mansfield, South Padre Island. It's been solid still on 4 to 6 foot of depth. And the redfish are starting to show up more around Arroyo City and South Padre and stuff like that, going right through here. So the trout bite has been early and excellent. It's been a real early bite. Lots of times it's been nice. We're limiting it out by 7:15, 7:30 in the morning, stuff like that, from Port Mansfield to South Padre. The trout are still holding in 4 to 6 foot of water, like I said, with the tides being up. They're higher. That'll start falling out later. When it starts falling out, I think the redfish will start showing up more. Pre-line and live croaker is working excellent in the deeper hole and sand pockets and drop-off still. And the winds have settled down some, which makes it a lot better to throw your favorite mirror lure topwater. Top Dog Junior is always a good one. And the sheep pups are working really good. They got a high frequency, which we've been using a lot of. The hot pink and the chartreuse with the black body's been working really great. Also, if you're working in deeper beds and drop-offs, if you're use saltwater plastic, use a saltwater assassin, a 5-inch shad, and magic grass with their favorite color. Chicken and chain also is a definitely go-to on that one. Got a good picture of a solid trout here. The young guy sent me a release of that one out of Port Mansfield.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a good one there. Moving on to redfish, like I said, they've been scarce around Mansfield and stuff like that, but you get to Arroyo City, South Padre Island. We've been having some good success around there when the drum boats, around 3 islands, stuff like that. You get to throw some saltwater assassin, sea shad, 5-inch paddle tails are working really good. 1/8 ounce jig head, tack it on with that one's working the best. Also up shallow, we're using Top Dog Junior for some good top water action, like the Walk the Dog. Look for wakes pushing up behind the baits. And also, most of the reds are in the slot size with a few undersized moving in there. There's some good action. And if you get some higher winds coming up, if you are wade fishing or throwing those top waters, just a good little advice to get those windrows. So toss right down through the middle of the windrow, work it like that, and instead of going crossways and getting all grassed up. Got a picture here of owner Shallow Sport, Kyra Hudson, with a good release of a redfish there with a good Yamaha and Shallow Sport in the background.
Nice picture there, bub. Way to go. All right, let's go ahead.
Moving offshore, blue water. I'm fired up. Blue water is moving up from Mexico. It's later than normal, but it's about 50 miles out, straight east of South Padre. Look for color changes, rips associated with this also. Billfish actions picked up in state and federal water. Snapper are both open, which I'm going to talk about first. So a lot of people calling me and talking about that one. They're both open currently right now, so you're allowed 4 per person in state waters or 2 in federal. You can't combine them both. You can't get 6. So the best thing to do is head up deeper, get 2 in your federal waters if you want to, and if you have time, you want to come back, get 2 for state. For a total of 4, that's fine. You can go out trolling, do that on your way in, but definitely total of 4 is max you can have in state waters, not vice versa. The bite's definitely picking up on the snapper here. The crabs, I've been talking about crab hits here lately. The crabs are getting bigger. I've been seeing them in coolers and stuff like that. So they're going to continue to improve. About another 2-3 weeks, I think that crab hatch will be over and a lot bigger fish will be showing up. There's plenty of fish. Currents are subsiding, which means you can start using some 1 to 3 ounce beaver claw jigs. Love this stuff. Use them with the trocar hooks. Hit those suspended fish. The lighter jig, the better off you are. Look at your Garmin chart plotter and sounder. And the best thing is put a track when you're drifting on these fish. You put your track line on, you're just going to be changing all the time from north to south and stuff like that. So we can go ahead and go through there and repeat and find out where the fish are suspended at, and also where you're getting them bit at, and just go ahead and keep on repeating the process for the best luck there. So moving in the blue water, which I'm pumped about. This stuff's coming from Mexico. It's a big, huge, broad line. It's basically 50 miles east of South Padre right now. So even if Mansfield, we got to even head south, and Aransas, you have to head way south. But this stuff's pushing towards Mansfield and Aransas. It's like I said, due east of South Padre. So find a rip, color change. It's real definite. You'll see it. Put a full spread out. Definitely got to have your Islanders rigged with ballyhoo, and then also put them on the shotgun, your outriggers, and put your chuggers and plungers at the same on your flats. But total about 7.5 to 8 knots, and also keep an eye on your Garmin for temp breaks and stuff like this. You can look and see which side of the rips got better temp. Definitely look for bait balls also associated with this. Rips and color changes. There's been good billfish there, and the other day we were just out and saw acres of blackfin moving with a few yellowfins bumped in there. I haven't seen that for years, so the stuff's really going to turn on here. And we also got some good blue marlin, like I said, and a few sailfish being released. So we got a nice picture of a released blue marlin from Real Madness out of South Padre there.
All right, bub. I hope that, great picture. I hope that you get some calm weather to go take advantage of all that pretty water. But we got to take a look at the shallow sport boats, hot spots from the lower coast region. He says inshore fishing has been excellent on trout from Port Mansfield to South Padre Island in 4 to 6 feet of water. The redfish action is better out of South Padre Island, and the blue water offshore is coming up from Mexico, and it's only about 50 miles out.
Good stuff. All right, the lower fresh region is bubbling with action on a ton of different lakes just for the dads out there. But first, Dave, do you have any last-minute gift ideas over there at the Workbench?
Fishing stuff.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that's
really?
That's what we want. We want fishing stuff.
All the fishing stuff.
That's what you want,
That's
Dave.
pretty.
Well, that's what we're here for, right? Fishing stuff.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
We'll be back.
I can't
with all
believe
the fishing.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Ameritrail. Load, launch, relax. Turn on the bite anytime. Tie on a MirrOlure. Diamond Fishing Products. Our reputation is on the line. And Startron. Cures and prevents ethanol fuel problems.
At the pinnacle of super high output, 4-stroke outboard performance, you'll find Yamaha VMAX SHO. Yamaha's game-changing SHO technology. From exhilarating V6 models to the sleek inline 4s, there's a VMAX SHO for everything from bass to bonefish. It's an extended family of 4-strokes engineered for lightweight, inspiring performance, and rock-solid reliability. Discover VMAX SHO and elevate your expectations.
Hey, yeah!
The only reel with over 100 years of heritage. Alvi reels are manufactured using the most reliable components. Alvi's state-of-the-art drag and retrieve rates are perfect for any fishing challenge. So whether it's a side cast or spinning reel, Alvi makes a reel that best fits your needs. Alvi reels are manufactured to best practice standards and are in fact so robust that the Alvi also comes with up to a 10-year salt and sand warranty. For more information, go to alvius.com.
So, Dave, new products at the Workbench for Father's Day. What do we got here,
Well, we're going to
bud?
start, with some speakers and an amp down there. These are marine-grade speakers from DS18. These are the DS18 Hydro speakers there, the NXL6. They're completely waterproof. They have an LED lighting system in there, red, green, and blue. They have 100% UV coating on the outside. When you pick those things up, you realize how heavy they are.
Yeah.
They are really heavy for how a 6.5-inch speaker. They have a 25mm titanium tweeter in the middle and a nice heavy cage, so nothing can really hurt that. Then once you get them mounted in there, they're not moving, and there's all solid state stuff in there. It's waterproof. Nothing's going to get in there and get it. So it's
cool.
From DS18. They also have the little NXL N2 amp over there, that little red amp in front of you. That thing, that's completely waterproof, very compact for a 600-watt amp. That's so you can really blow the ears off yourself if you're not careful. Their slogan is "We like it loud." So they're living up to it. So if you go to ds18.com, you can find all this stuff for your boat to get rocking out when you're rocking in the free world.
All right, what else we got?
Well, next we got the Power Stick Generator Gen 3 power action camera from TH Marine and Yellowtech. It's called the Yellowtech Power Stick, and we've got two different sizes, a little 20-inch there, and then the other one goes from 34 to 53 inches. And the big thing about these is you never have to charge a power pole. It's a mount that has two USBs in it, and you put that thing in your nav light socket, pull your nav light out, and you have a cameraman on the boat with not nearly as much lip as the cameraman that you usually are probably used to having to deal with.
This could be the way of the future.
You can put one of those in the back and one in the front and set it and forget it, and let your GoPro do a loop, or your Verb, or whatever little motion you got there, your high def camera. So it's got a ball socket mount, so you can get all the different angles you want, and it's pretty cool little things right there.
I like
from
it.
TH Marine. Gen 3 Yellowtech Power Stick.
If I could teach this stick how to make me a sandwich, George, you'd be out of a job.
There you go. TH Marine. Next we got some little spinner baits here. These are from Booyah, and they're called Pond Magic. And what they are is there's a little series of spinner baits that are made to fish in small bodies of water. Ponds and small creeks and stuff like that, and I love to throw spinner baits, and these are really great.
Why do you like spinner baits so much?
Well, because you can throw them in pretty heavy cover a lot of times. They don't get snagged up as often as a regular crankbait or whatever, and they put out a huge amount of flash and vibration, and those are really good little booyahs. They're made with strong stuff. So booyahbaits.com.
And this is from Chase Baits.
Chase Bait. That's the prop duster glider. I'm sorry. It's this big swim bait, and that little prop in the middle is a unique thing to them. They're all big baits, from 5 inches up to almost 8 inches, 1 ounce up to 3.5 ounces.
Well, they got some serious hooks, man.
They are giant hooks on there. If they're made to catch big fish, you catch big bass or big striped bass or any of those things. They come in 4 different colors: bluegill, bone, herring, and rainbow trout. Single joint construction, gives it a really nice side-to-side motion. You just give it a shot and it'll go glide this way, and give it another shot and it'll glide that way. And with that little turbo in there spinning, it makes it look alive. So things want to eat it. So get that Chatterbaits US. Go to chasebaitsusa.com.
Okay.
Chase Baits.
That was some good fishing stuff, Dave.
Fishing
I like
stuff.
it.
We don't
All
want ties.
great fishing stuff. All right, we're jumping into the lower fresh region, where Lake Falcon, Amistad, Travis, Inks, Marble Falls, and Choke Canyon are all looking pretty promising for the Father's Day weekend ahead. Matt, we got a lot of water to cover, so let's get to it.
Yeah, I got too much on my list again, as usual, but I bet I can get it covered. Let's start out with the largemouth bass on Falcon. Falcon is fishing really well right now. The water is stabilized, and that makes the big fish chew. When that water starts to fall, they really get hungry and stage up where they're supposed to be. They're on the main lake rock and brush piles. That's your best chance to catch the big ones. Football jigs, Carolina rigs, and crankbaits have been the deal for the rocks. A Texas rig, big worm is what you need to throw in the brush piles. Moving on up to Lake Amistad, numbers have been really good. I helped with the kids' camp there this week. Lots of numbers. Early morning topwater bite is exceptional. Walking baits or plopper-style baits have been best. If they won't stick the head all the way out of the water, get you a chatterbait or a swim jig. Lots of bites that way around the shallow hydrilla. Later in the day, throw a big Texas rig on the outside edge of the hydrilla. Another bite that's been really productive is the rock points and rock bluffs. We get you a drop shot. Have caught a ton of fish on a morning dawn colored worm on a drop shot. And I caught quite a few big ones during the week doing that also. Brian Cotter sent me a report from Lake Travis. There's still a lot of schooling activity in the marinas in the mornings, also in some of the deep coves. Get you a swim bait, small swim bait throws those scooters. Later in the day, move out to the humps and ledges in 10 to 35 foot of water, drag you a Texas rig or a football jig, and that'll get you some bigger bites. Also, some fish flipping jigs under the docks in the shade. That's always a good pattern in the summer, so you might want to try those docks later in the day. Inks Lake, been fishing really well shallow. It's a clear lake, but even in the hottest summer, there's a lot of fish shallow. They're eating, swimming frogs around laydowns in the shallow water willow. There's also some fish on the docks there. You can skip a jig or stick bait under those docks. It's a great way to catch them. Lake Marble Falls, there's also a frog bite. When the sun gets up, though, pick up a shaky head worm. Get out, on the deeper ledge or sitting on top of it, 10 to 15 foot of water. That pick there is one of my favorites. That's my young dad at 82, still swinging at him. I love to see him smile when he's got a pegging in his hand.
Well, make sure you tell him Happy Father's Day for us. All right, where else are we going this week, bub?
Well, we got the alligator gar on Falcon. The main lake has been fishing really well with cut carp. That's come from Ram Reyes at Texas Kings Outdoors. There's also a lot of bow fishing going on for them midday and at night. Got a picture of a big old gar there that they caught this week. Just amazing how big those things are.
Golly. Now, what do they do with that fish, Matt? Do they eat it? What do they do?
If they catch them on rod and reel, they turn a lot of them loose. But if they shoot them with a bow, they do eat them. I have not eaten alligator gar, but they say it's pretty good. So I don't know.
All right. Well, speaking of good, tell us about the catfish.
All right. The catfish at Falcon have been biting really well. The keeper size in that 1 to 10 foot range around the hardwoods. The big cats have been kind of slow. But they're also hanging on the edge of the flats closer to the ledges. Choke Canyon, catfishing is really good. You get you some stink bait or cut bait, get around the hardwoods. There's tons of keeper size channel cat and blue cat.
All right, Matt. So let me ask you a couple questions, bud. Tell me about these kids' clinics that you guys just did. Tell me a little bit about it.
It's a blast. I got a buddy, Kurt Dove, that puts on a camp, and we serve as instructors. And I mean, there's guys like Denny Brower, Hall of Famer, is an instructor there. There's a lot of us that do it every year. Take a couple of kids fishing every day for 3 or 4 days, and they have their own little tournament at the end where there's scholarship money involved. So it's a blast. I enjoy doing it every year. Anytime I can get some kids in my boat, it just doesn't get any better than that.
You're absolutely right. I think that we need to come out there and do something. I've issued the invitation, or I've kind of invited myself, but I really want to come and do something with you if we can, either next spring or early this fall. What do you think?
We need to do it. We need to do it really bad.
All right, bub. Well, we certainly appreciate you. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the hot spots from the lower fresh region. Matt says that Falcon Lake, they are chewing the bass. In the main lake rocks and brush piles have been 2 main patterns. Throw football jigs and Carolina rigs or crankbaits on the rocks, and a Texas rig big worm at the brush piles. And guess what? a big one is in your near future.
Oh, I like that.
That's pretty cool.
That's cool. I hope the big one's in all the Father's Day features this weekend.
So speaking of Father's Day, what
Yes.
you got planned for your husband, Joe?
I think we're gonna go fishing.
You want to go fishing?
Yeah, Mia's finally at the age where she likes to fish, so I think we're gonna take advantage of it and head out on the water. How about y'all?
Dave?
Oh, I'm gonna get away from my children.
Spaghetti bowl with me.
I've been wanting to kill them.
Okay,
We've all
moving
been
on.
wanting to kill each other this last month.
Oh, that's true.
Well, that's
we
we're
love
all
them.
That's
together.
the difference, Bree, when
What are
they're
you doing?
big.
What are you
Then they're
doing?
big, yes. They're
I don't
lovely
know.
when they're little.
I might just do something with Kathy and leave my two
Leave
boys
all the boys
somewhere
home. Okay,
else.
totally
No, not
different
really. Just
scenarios.
kidding.
Whatever your scenario, we hope you have
Maybe
a very
something by
happy
the pool.
Father's Day weekend. Go catch
Happy
them up.
Father's Day,
We'll see you
guys.
next week.